My prostrations at the feet of the gurus, the lineage, and also to my mentor, my guide, my teacher in spirituality, Sri Prabhuji. Om Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om. So, in matters or in any spiritual gathering, in satsangs, the most discussed topic are just two actually. From that, there are many, many variations. One is consciousness, and the other is matter. What is consciousness? What is matter? And the relationship, the mix up, the separation between the two, these are almost the topics that is being discussed in practically every satsang from different angles, different perspectives. um, it is very interesting that so much of discussion happens on consciousness and matter and the relationship between them, yet none of us are tired of listening to the same thing, isn't it? Huh? And it eludes us. The nature of consciousness eludes us. The nature of matter, though we think we have understood through science, that also eludes us. So this is a topic from eons. So, but let us take up this once again, and let us see what emerges in today's discussion, in today's satsang. Hmm? Consciousness is one, and matter is many. Consciousness is singular, matter is plural, isn't it? Um, so the most interesting and curious question that all of us will have is, how did one become many? Um, so, if we want to discuss, there is nothing much to talk about consciousness except that to say that it is at the source, it is one. But if we have to talk about matter, it's a lot of variety, and we can keep on extending that discussion. But let's explore it today from one angle, which we think will help us um, understand matter, understand consciousness, and look at the relationship between the two in the path of spiritual progress of us as a seeker. Um, in matter, while consciousness is one, matter is many, fundamentally, matter is of two kinds. One is gross matter, and the other is subtle matter. Hmm? Now, the difference lies in this, that the gross matter, the quantity and the quality of subtle matter and the characteristics of gross matter gives the variety of all objects in this world. It's very easy for us to extrapolate, isn't it? If an object is made up of only gross matter, generally we take it to be inert, without life. And then if matter has both the components, gross and subtle, then subtle matter is the one that enlivens the gross matter uh, because of the source which is beyond the subtle matter also. And that source, we call it consciousness. Now, therefore, what is the world? The world is a combination of animate and inanimate objects, sentient and insentient objects, sentient beings, insentient objects. The quantity and quality of subtle matter gives rise to the variety of enlivened beings, the variety in the category of enlivened beings. Primarily, we can think of three categories of enlivened beings: plants, animals, and humans. So, with this background, we will look at what makes an inert object or inert matter enlivened. What gives life to beings? Isn't that an interesting thing? Hmm? We normally take this for granted, isn't it? That I am living today and life is in me, I'll continue to live. But then look at it in a very fundamental aspect. This body is lifeless till till the consciousness gets into this body and enlivens it. And an expression of life in the body is through prana or the vital energy that sets body and mind in motion. Body in terms of physical movement and mind in terms of thinking. Both are movements, physical movements and psychological movements. So far, so good, isn't it? Now, um, how did the body get life? When did the body get life? From the mother's womb? How do we think that the baby cries as soon as it is born? It is because of consciousness touching matter, quote unquote touching. Now we must remember, and we all know spiritually, consciousness and matter are at two different levels of reality. Consciousness is formless, without attributes, without color, without form, without shape, without texture, essentially formless and without any attributes. Whereas matter has all the form, function, texture, physical and chemical characteristics. Now, when it comes to when it comes to living beings, the living beings have physical and chemical characteristics. In addition, we have all living beings have one more, the psychological characteristics, which is not present in inert objects. With that, now what does that give? That these characteristics set apart living beings from non-living beings only and only from this perspective, the expression of the original energy or consciousness. Otherwise, it is practically impossible to say that matter is devoid of existence or consciousness, and only living beings have it. No. If so, there are then two components. We call this the world. The world consists of actually objects, insentient objects, and sentient beings. Sentient beings includes humans, animals, insects, and all kinds of living forms, and including the plant kingdom. Now, the moment we talk about the world, we must talk about the creator. The moment we start saying that there is creation, there must be one who has created the entire world. So, therefore, as we progress, we get three components: Jiva, the individual living entity; Jagat, which is all the combination of the rest of the living and non living beings; and then the creator, which is Ishvara. Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara. The three components there. When human being is just being formed in the womb of the mother, it is just one cell multiplying, two cells coming into one and becoming one as one cell, an egg and a sperm, and then multiplying to become a mass of flesh, bones, tissues, and internal organs. The body is only a body and inert matter. Till at some point of time, there is a touch of consciousness, which makes the fetus alive. The heart starts beating, the lungs start breathing. All of these things happen within the womb itself when consciousness touches the little mass of flesh and bones and blood and other internal organs. Now, this is the very first impression that comes. That which had no form, that which was formless before birth, before even conception, suddenly that becomes just a mass of flesh and blood, and then gets enlivened because of the touch of consciousness. Now, if consciousness doesn't get imprinted in the subtle body of the living being, then no life is possible, isn't it? From that imprint of consciousness, from that impression of consciousness, rises the vital energy, and then all life activities begin. So without this, it's like, you know, a rubber stamp being stamped on an official notice on the piece of paper at the end. Before the stamp was imprinted, it was stamped on the paper. What was it? It was nothing. It was just a piece of paper, no value. All the value to the notice, whether it's a government notice or a private notice, comes from the seal of the seal provided by the stamp. Similarly, all of the value of life comes from the stamp of the seal of consciousness. Now, the universal consciousness, once it gets into the individual, assumes its own limitation and gets stamped into the subtle body, and that is called I am. The feeling that I exist and the knowledge that I exist. I exist is a fact, and I know that I exist is also a fact. No external proof is required for these two knowledge. Whereas for every other knowledge of the secular topics, we need proof. We need to develop a proof to establish its validity. From then, what happens? Once, once the imprint is there as I am, then the important quality of I am comes into picture. What is the main characteristic of I am? The consciousness that gets reflected in the individual, in the subtle body, in the intellect. Its property or its characteristic, fundamental characteristic is to be. The beingness comes from this I am. That means the sense of liveliness, a feeling that I am alive. That is the beingness. And it doesn't stop there. The I am not just wants to be, but there is another important factor. It wants to continue to be. Please see, no one wants to die. No one wants to age. By whose property or characteristic does this come about? It is from the I am. And how does this property arise? This individual consciousness uses the body itself, uses the body itself to keep itself alive. You can imagine um, an oil lamp with a wick glowing. How long will the flame burn? It'll burn as long as the fuel or the oil is there in the lamp, isn't it? And what is the quality of the flame, whether it's blue or yellow or with soot mixed up with a lot of soot? It depends on the quality of the fuel, quality of the oil that keeps it burning. So the reflection or in the individual, the individuality, the personality, the extent of life depends on the quality of the fuel, quantity of the fuel, and the quality of the reflection depends on the quality of the fuel. That means I am, if the fuel, body, mind, if the body has clogged energy in its energy centers and the mind has a lot of negative thoughts, then the reflection of I am, the individual energy that drives life within this body, will be distorted. So, therefore, what is the way for actually, what is all sadhana about? It's about cleaning and maintaining the instruments with clarity and purity. The body, mind, whatever is unclean, we start got clean. We can do nothing about I am, the consciousness or the individual consciousness or witness, because it's as pure as it can be. We can't we can't add anything to it, we can't subtract anything from it. All that we can do is to improve the quality of reflection and prolong the quality of the flame. I mean, prolong the duration of the reflection by feeding it with proper food. Feeding I am with proper food. And the food here is derived from the body. Why so? Why do we say food for I am is derived from the body? Because I am gets reflected only as long as the body is alive. This individual I am we are speaking of, the individual consciousness. The moment this body comes to the end of life, body, by body we mean body mind, end of this life, then I am no longer exists as I am in the individual. It will merge into the universal I am, Ishvara principle. Therefore, it is important. What is the first characteristic of I am? It is that it wants to live. Who wants to live? The body doesn't want to live. Body is inert. The mind cannot think. It is I am that wants to live through the body. It is I am that wants to think through the mind. And it's I am that wants to feel through the energy. And it wants to continue to live in the body. Similarly, body also is enlivened, powered by I am. Without I am, body is not enlivened. So the nature of relationship between I am and the body is of mutual dependence. Can we recognize this? I am depends on the body to continue to live. And the body without I am is not enlivened. And how does I am continue to want to live? It is by four basic qualities. In spirituality, they say ahara, nidra, bhaya, maithuna. Ahara, bhaya is the second one. Bhaya, nidra, maithuna. How does life get extended? With food. By food, we also mean water and air. Food, solid, liquid, and air. Most essential for life to continue. And who lives? Who lives? I am actually lives in the body. Bhaya. Bhaya is the fear. And how does fear help? In survival instinct. Without fear, I'll be just casual, carefree, and I don't care if anything happens to me. Isn't it? Nidra, eh, I am has to rest in order to wake up with the full energy in the morning, in order to continue to live. Without rest, the activities will not have enough energy. Maithuna, this body has a shelf life, has a life. Therefore, I am wants to continue through the extension of itself. So it wants to procreate through producing other bodies. All this are for one reason only, extending extending the duration of life of I am, either out of this body or with the assumption that I am will continue with in other bodies after the time for this body has got over, after the expiry date of this body. Hmm? So, in this respect, I am is the fundamental principle that is the cause for all activities that this being, body, mind, and consciousness composite undertakes. So, in the process, what happens in the process of living, somewhere along the way, sooner than later, I am, because it sees the body enlivened and it sees itself acting through the body, it assumes it is this body. Look at the very phrase, I am this body. Who is this body? I am. Sorry, I think there was an interruption. So, the first limitation of I am, which was free and unlimited, comes from the identification with this body, this limited body. That which was unlimited, I am, becomes limited by identifying itself with this body. Now, I am is not satisfied with this limitation. It wants to overcome the limitation. Who wants to overcome the limitation? Not the body. The body is just like that. It is natural on its own. So I am has got limited by identifying with this body, and therefore it wants to overcome that limitation, and it tries to see how it can overcome the limitation. In the beginning, it 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 assumes that I can overcome my finite existence by adding on something more and more to this finite body. That which is this body. So I will add that which is only this body. I will add mine to it. That means I will add some property to it, my house, then mine, the name and fame to it. I achieved this. It is my accomplishment. And relationship, my wife, my children, my husband, my parents. What is happening in the process? I am is trying to expand from the limitations of this body to beyond this body by adding on acquisitions to this body mind complex. And this is the quality of the ego. The ego is dissatisfied with itself, and it thinks it'll become happy. It'll overcome its own limitation by adding something new over and above what it already is at this present moment. Soon it will realize that this is not working, because everything that is added on, everything that is me and mine, and the happiness derived out of it, and the satisfaction derived out of it, has also a shelf life. That means if I if I get a name and fame, if I accomplish something and I am happy, then I'll be happy only for a certain duration. And that's the nature of all objects. Because objects are limited, objects are subject to time period of birth and death. Every object goes through 6 phases. Asti, Jayate, Vardate, Vipakshiyate, Viparinimate, Vinashyate. Existence, birth, growth, stabilization, decline, and decay. When that is the nature of every object, and these are what are told by Adi Shankara in Tattva Bodha. Take any objects, living or non-living. it will have these 6 phases of existence. First is the very existence, the conceptualization that it is there, pre-birth stage. Then the coming into being via the birth. In the case of inert objects, it's taking the shape of a product or a form. Till then, it was only atoms and molecules. That is the existence. In the jiva, it is just not yet, it is a pure existence as an embryo. Then the birth, when it comes out after 9 months of staying in the womb of the mother. Then growth, then stabilization or maturity, then decline, and finally destruction or decay or death. Now, when every object goes through these 6 phases and the variation, when objects will go away from experience one day or the other, how can happiness or the value derived out of the object be permanent? It cannot be, isn't it? Therefore, I am will realize that I am an engineer, I am a consultant, I am a doctor, I am a lawyer through profession, or I am a husband, I am a son, I am a father through its relationship. All of these have, or I have a house, I have a car, the car is mine. This me and mine have its own limitations. It will get fed up of acquisitions. It will start to seek overcoming the limitations with more intensity within itself. That's the point of advent of a realized master. And when the master says, you are the, when the student says, I am the body, the master will say, you are not the body. For whom is that statement, I am not the body? It is for I am. From I am the body, I am this body, to I am not this body is one step ahead. And what does this statement, I am not this body, mean? It means 2 things. One is, I am the one who is the witness of this body, body mind. The other subtler thing, with a little more introspection, it means I am not only this body, but I am every body, which is an expression of love. The fundamental force of love, which is I am, seeks to extend its own life. But when love becomes impersonal at the witness level, it recognizes the unity and oneness of every other part in creation, living and non-living. So, from I am this Jivatma, I am this Jivatma, I am this body, to I am the witness or Sakshi, which means I am not this body, to I am the universal principle I am, which is I am Ishvara. I am all bodies, I am not limited to this body, is the teaching and path of growth for whom? For I am only. So, with the first impression, there is the descent. That is, a non-living entity becomes a living entity, and the living entity acquires a lot of things. Now, with all the realization and all the work that one does with the wrong identification, how far can one go From I am the body to I am not the body to the pure I am, one can go up to that stage. So the first impression is more appropriately to be titled the first and the last impression. It is the first impression when there is a descent. It is the last remaining impression when there is an ascent. And this I am is a peculiar fellow. I am is individual from one angle. Why? Because I feel I am, I exist, where I feel this complex, this composite. It is felt within the subtle body, within the intellect. So it is personal feeling. It is a very personal feeling. I exist. Who is this I? This individual I am. At the same time, if we extend this I am is not my property alone. Vani is here. She also feels I am. All of you are here. 23 more people are here. All 23 of you will feel I am. I exist. I know I'm living. So it becomes from a personal feeling, the understanding is I am is not no longer personal, it is universal. The I am in me is also the same I am in you. Why is it the same I am? It is the same feeling in everyone. I am alive. Nobody feels I am dead, isn't it? So the same feeling, and it is the same one principle that is there everywhere. But just by virtue of identification with this individual body, the universal gets personalized, localized within this body. Hmm? Therefore, the whole journey is from the mix up of I am with this body, mind complex to actually separating from this identification of this individual body mind. That's all there can be a journey. After that, we just have to wait. From I am this body to I am the witness, and even the I am the witness has to drop. Only I am remains, and I am realizes I am not individual I am, but I am that I am, the universal I am. I am not this I am, but I am that I am, which is the I am that is in every creature. And that is the Ishvara principle. Tattvamasi, the teacher, when he says Tattvamasi, means you I am is the universal I am. It is for this I am to recognize that this I am is universal. What technique is available for us to overcome this confusion of I am in the beginning? You see, the first impression is the culprit. The last impression is the bottleneck. And both are I am. Why is it the bottleneck? If we stay at the level of impression, if we stay at the level of I am not this body, I am the witness, then we can't transcend the limitation. We no doubt will get a lot of stability, coolness, and calmness, but still there is an element of duality. Therefore, even that little I am, which is there, must be dropped in the sense of having to realize that this is no longer individual but universal and transcendental. If we look at how the limitation is come by, Vani and I were discussing yesterday and this morning about it. That which is infinite becomes finite by three processes as mentioned in Drik Trishya Viveka. Drik Trishya Viveka says there are three ways in which the, the Sakshi gets limited. One is through identification with the body, the principle of identification. The second is the principle of reflection. The moment an imprint is there in the subtle body, it gets limited. But then the third is I. It is as a dream, as an illusory dream, identification with the dream. So accordingly, Drisya Viveka talks about three types of individuals, jivas. Vyavaharika jiva, pratibhasika jiva, and paramarthika jiva. The jiva here is associated with the world, the individual consciousness. For example, pratibhasika jiva is the dreamer or the dream consciousness. And the dream world is pratibhasika jagat. And the waker or the waking consciousness, or the waking entity is vyavaharika jiva, and the waking world is vyavaharika jagat. When, in order to look at this limitation, Drik Trishya Viveka takes the two states, the dream and the waking state, and establishes that both are unreal. And we'll quickly go through that. We need not elaborate on it. Dream is real as long as I am dreaming. But the moment I wake up from the dream, then the waking person says it's only a dream. So the dream is real only to the dreaming entity, as long as the dream lasts. The dreamer and the dream vanishes once the entity wakes up from the dream and becomes a waking entity. Now, as long as a person is awake, then the waker and the waking world, the world of objects around and the sentient beings, they seem real. If a tiger comes in front of me, I will run. It is very real in the waking state, isn't it? Till when, similarly, by the same logic of the dream, till then, till when is the waker and the waking world real? Till one wakes up, till the waker wakes up from the waking dream and becomes a witness. So that witness is Paramarthika Jiva, the only reality. And once we understand that this is uh, this is the only reality, it will be one. It is Advaita Sthiti. It is non-dual in nature. So it will stop. It has no need to identify with any of these states. If at all it identifies, it recognizes any of the objects external to itself, Driktrishya Viveka says it knows it is mithya, it is unreal, it is temporary. So the reality, so once the realization of the witness comes that all of the rest of the states, the dreaming and the sleep and the waking state are temporary, the one that is in and through all these is the witness or the turiya, then there is no need for this witness upon realization that it is the absolute, it is the only reality to to witness anything because it is complete in itself. It is the only reality. What can be witnessed? Any object other than itself can be witnessed. The true witness, the real absolute self, when it is non dual, when there is nothing else apart from itself, what is there to witness? There is nothing to witness. Witness as in the case of seeing objects external to itself. So when there is nothing or nobody other than me, I am non-dual. I am the only existence. I am as I am, not I am as I am the body. When I am is the only thing that is present, I am that I am when it's transcended, then there is nothing to observe. There is nothing to witness. There is no experience whatsoever possible in that state. But that paramarthika jiva, that absolute self, that transcendental self, it will descend into the waking state, vyavaharika state, transactional state. And when it descends, the body mind complex becomes a pure instrument of expression of that witness self, that turiya state. It will descend because one, as long as this body is there, it will continue to live even after realization till the prarabdha is exhausted. So, when upon realization of the paramarthika state or the real state, that energy, that consciousness will descend into the vyavaharika state, use the body mind complex for working, knowing fully well that what it is seeing as the world, what it is seeing as the body is only mithya or the instrument to be used by the divine. Prior to realization, what is the understanding that this is real? I am this body. I want to achieve. There is a sense of volition, of will. I want to get promotion. I want to buy a house. I want to buy a new car. I, me, and mine is there prior to realization. When the last impression of I am is removed and realized I am that I am, then again when it descends, there is no impression. It is a seamless flow of consciousness through this body mind complex for a spontaneous action. And when this I am feels that it is universal, how does it express itself? What is the natural expression? Its natural expression is love and compassion. So we will see all realized beings very active in the world, but claiming no doership, spontaneous action for all activities that happens naturally in a flow. And that is what is otherwise called Jagat Hitaya, the universal action for the welfare of the world. Knowing fully well, here the understanding is the world is not different from me. That is the difference. Otherwise, it will be only social service. I am here does everything, but claims no credit. It's like this. If we make a donation of 1 lakh rupees to an orphanage, and if we refuse to get our names printed on the notice on the name board of the orphanage, how will people know who has donated? So literally, I am is that Sakshi is that anonymous entity, quote unquote entity. Who will know anything about an anonymous entity? Nobody can know. Not even the Sakshi, because it is not an entity. So when the I am doesn't claim any doership in its realized state, then who will know? Who is there to know? There is nothing to know, and that's the complete knowledge. And that is what is called Purna. Knowing nothing, there is nothing to know and nowhere to go, is not a limitation state. It is infinitely potential, infinitely powerful, infinitely potent state. Nothing can be said about it. When there is no to a state which is formless, to an entity which is formless, to an entity which has no color, no texture, no form, no shape, no quality, no attribute, what can we say about it? Yet, being without attribute, it lends attribute to all forms. Being formless, it enables all forms. Being in a state of absolute potential of knowing, it enables all knowledge, both of the world and spiritual knowledge. Still, it does not claim to know, it does not claim to do, it does not claim any form. Nothing can be said about it. Silence is the only answer to the prayer to I am state, the transcendental state. Sadashiva Brahmendra very nicely puts it. Sarvam Brahmamayam. Re Re Sarvam Brahmamayam. Everything is Brahman, smeared with Brahman. Kim Vachaniyam, Kima Vachaniyam. What can be said? Kim Vachaniyam. What cannot be said? Kim Avachaniyam. Re Re Sarvam Brahmamayam. All that can be said and all that cannot be said, both are Brahman. Kim Pathaniyam, Kima Pathaniyam. What can be studied? What cannot be studied? Both are Brahman. Kim Bhoktavyam, Kima Bhoktavyam. What is experience and what is not experience? Both are Brahman. Sarvatra Sada Hamsa Dhyanam. Sarvatra, in every place, Sada, at all times, be identified with Hamsa, the universal principle. Kartavyo bho mukti vidhanam, and engage in action. Kartavya, that is the path to liberation. Mukti vidhanam. If at all we are looking for liberation as an individual, then we have no choice but to engage in action. But how? Sarvatra sada hamsa dhyanam. At all times and in all places, have one attention on the universal principle, hamsa, at the Agnya Chakra, and engage the body mind in its natural flow of action. That is the way to mukti. That is the wonderful kriti of Sadashiva Brahmendra. Such a wonderful thing, isn't it? Hmm? So the first impression is the culprit. It will start. That which is formless will get into form, and the very same thing becomes the last impression, and that last impression is the final block to realization. If we proceed without getting stuck there, then I am becomes that I am. This is the first and last impression. Thank you for your patient listening. Om Tat Sat. I offer this understanding and the energy to my teacher and all the realized beings. Om Tat Sat.